All right, let's get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, first of all, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom, and I'll try to get to it as I'm talking, but if not, I'll get to it at the end. All right, and if I won't get to it at the end, you have my email. You can always feel free to just contact me. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me, especially during this socially distant time. I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef, tech executive consultant and expert at creating high-impact engineering teams. And today we'll be talking about creating leverage. I always talk with my clients about leverage and how they, as leaders of organizations, can leverage and should leverage the rest of the organization. Whatever they do will help everyone else gain more and more momentum. And it does not get any clearer than at times just like what we're having right now. While so many companies have gotten into this hunkered down mode, scared, not thinking, not doing anything other than starting to cut every expense, canceling whatever they can, I see that there's plenty of room here to engage and leverage this situation and get something better out of it. You can get out of this crisis ahead than the way you were before. I'm not talking about the actual results of the pandemic. I'm putting that aside. That's a horrible situation. I'm not talking about that. And I hope everyone you know are healthy and safe. But I'm talking about the fact that we as humans can learn from constraints and learn from such situations. And I will dig into a bunch of examples. But before starting that, let me give you an overview. I think this will be for about 40 minutes. We will focus on leverage for you personally, for your whole organization, and specifically about technological leverage that you can put in right now into action. If we have questions, I'm here for like an hour, so don't be afraid. But I always say to everyone, in every email I have, in every newsletter, in every podcast, I try and answer every question I get an email, and you have my email, and you will, because you're attending, you will get an email with the recording later on. You can simply reply to that email and just ask whatever you have. I'm not pushing anything or any service in this call, all right? This is completely free. I would love for you to sign up to my free podcast or my free newsletter or read my free articles, but that's that. At the end of this call, I'll have a free offer for you. So listen on. So we will start with talking about how you personally can leverage this. And when I'm talking to you, usually most of my clients are leaders of engineering organizations. That means having a title such as CTO, VP of Engineering, VP of R&D, and similar. But I find this applicable to essentially any manager, and to some extent even to most individual contributors who are seniors or working at getting even more senior in the organization. And that's right now when you're looking at how things are happening in your organization, especially when you have to work from home, there's a very clear dichotomy. In the past couple of weeks, I've talked to, I don't know, almost 100 executives about what's happening. And I see a very clear dichotomy. Either they're saying, I can't believe it, I'm so busy right now, like I've never been before, or, whoa, I've got some time. It's amazing. I can actually have time to make a cup of coffee between the Zoom calls. And I think that's the very first lesson you can get right now. And that's either way, you have something to learn from having that insight. Because if you all of a sudden have so much more work to do, you're much busier, you have to make a lot more calls, you have to attend many more meetings, you have to ping people in text messages and on Slack. That usually indicates, for me as a coach that watches what's happening, that usually indicates to me that you have just lost a crutch. And we will dig into that a bit later. But even if what you're saying is, whoa, I've got so much time now. This is very nice. I can get used to this. And I think that this is a very major part in something many executives don't understand they can actually do, and that's making time. I always say to my clients that they have to make time to lead. You cannot be a servant of your calendar. You cannot allow your calendar to simply take you from one meeting to the other, not having any time to process what just happened in the previous meeting, not having any time for yourself to do some thinking, and not having any time to simply go about the office and talk to people and see what's happening. Right now, that's a bit harder, and we'll touch that as well. But I do believe that you have to make sure that you have the time to lead. Otherwise, you are being led by a calendar, and the calendar is a terrible, terrible thing. And that's because, as you all know, everyone in your organization can claim a spot in your calendar. I simply need to send you an email with an invite, and boom, I just claimed a piece of your time, and you're not getting that hour. Never, never. Will you get a good return on investment on that hour? I'm guessing you find that most of the meetings you attend are too long, useless, have too many attendees, could have been an email. And that's the first step that you have to do right now. If you just understood that, whoa, I actually have more time right now because I don't know, people are creating less meetings right now, or meetings are shorter because people, I don't know, are not sitting in a comfy chair and joking between sessions. So they are actually straight and to the point, or because people have kids running around and you try to get to the point as fast as possible because there are no schools. All that actually tells you that you can, right now, the second we start going back to the real world, you can retain some of these and leverage whatever you actually are used to into seeing a world that allows you to lead, to think. I am shocked how many leaders basically do not cannot hear themselves thinking during regular work week. They get all their insights, you know when they have really long flights. That's when they have all the thinking time, and that's only if they're too cheap to get the internet package on the flight. Anytime else, they are constantly having to answer and attend and reply and plan, and they don't get any time to do some thinking. And if you're getting that right now, that's golden, and start doing that. And if you're not getting that right now, we'll get to that in a second. But start with, if you're seeing this, understanding that you can perform a calendar reset in order to claim back so much of your time. A calendar reset contains things such as defragging your calendar so that, for example, if you have a bunch of one-on-ones, they are all stacked one after the other in, say, 1/2 day, so you don't have a lot of dead 30 minutes between meetings where you don't actually get any work done. And attacking things like the default 1 hour. I hate the default 1 hour. I almost never send an email that invites someone for just 1 hour. I think Zoom made me do this webinar be a 1 hour, but I told you I'm aiming for like 40 minutes because if I can provide you with all the details and all the insights I have in 5 minutes, I'm guessing you'd rather that ever and not me having going on and on. I have a great podcast about the calendar reset or refresh. You can listen to that if you'd like to. But I basically want you to, right now, if you're in the dichotomy, if you're in the bunch of people who currently have more time, I want you to make sure that you keep this. Do not let this escape the second people start attending the real world again. You can get so much time out of this, and it is golden. Now, once we've covered the basic time management and the difference you already have right now, you have to take stock of your situation in the company. In order to be able to apply leverage, you have to be in a certain position. Even if you're an executive at a startup, say you're a CTO at a startup and you're a co-founder, I've seen many situations where R&D and engineering are treated as a resource. You are not privy to a lot of the conversations going on when it comes to deciding how the roadmap is going to be decided, what changes are going to happen. Right now, in pretty much every tech company, people are talking about what should they be doing differently. Should they cut back on hiring? Should they maybe follow some people? Should they change the roadmap? If you're not in these conversations right now, if you're just getting the emails after things have been decided, you are missing out on the way you can leverage. Because I always say that you need to be working and make sure that you have a seat at the table so you can affect the decisions upstream. If you talking to some generic you, usually again an executive who's in charge of an entire organization under her, but if you are getting the requests and the decisions and the tasks from back over there and you're simply in execution mode, you are not affecting and making sure that you can get the work that you have the most leverage as an entire organization to do. Because I've worked for, I think, 5 years as some kind of a super coder freelancer running between a bunch of companies. And I've seen that half of the time when you sit down with product, you sit down with a CEO and they tell you, we want you to do this, this, and that, it makes like half of it makes sense, half of it really doesn't, or half of it is so complicated and will demand so much work that it's probably not worth it. But too many people right now in their day-to-day jobs simply accept or fight the wrong fights instead of fighting the fights that can save a lot of time. In order for you to save a lot of time, you have to be higher up in the chain. And this is now one of the best points in your career to make sure that you're situated there, because there are a bunch of decisions being made, and if you are not privy to them and you only get things after they've been decided, you have the ability right now to come in with your insights, because you probably have more time right now to think and get the ability to push on that and get the ability to apply your thinking and provide them with insights before the final say is made, so that you can make sure your team gets the best decisions and the best task where they can have the most impact on the business. Which brings us to how you can leverage as an organization whatever is currently happening. Let me just check if we have any questions that I'd like to answer right now. No. If you missed me in the beginning saying, you can drop in questions in the Q&A and I'll simply answer you either live or at the end or later. And let's see. Oh, we've got a bunch of attendees. Hello, everyone. I see we have people from, I don't know how many countries, but I'm seeing at least 3 continents. Very nice. Thank you. All right, so back. After we've covered how you can personally leverage yourself, which is by making sure you make great use of the time you've got and making sure not to forget how to use that time later on, and making sure that you put yourself as high up as you can in the organization when it comes to the decisions. I'm not talking about how the org chart looks. Let's talk about how you can affect your organization, and your whole organization can make sure to push things forward. Right now, I'm guessing you've already started doing this, but I want to make sure you have to, first of all, focus on how you can support your staff. And that depends on whatever bigger picture situation your company is in right now. I have a bunch of clients. Some of them have told me, we're not worried. We've got a lot of money in the bank. We're doing good. We'll just keep on, we're gonna stay the course and we're gonna move on. Other companies, especially if you're a startup that we're planning on raising more funds in the next couple of months, you're going to have a harder time, I'm guessing, and those companies have, for example, stopped hiring, put some people on unpaid leave. I want to say that if you at any chance, if you have any possibility to still hire people, I think that you must, especially in R&D. And why? Because if you're gonna stop hiring for the time being, even though you have the money, you're wasting a golden opportunity, because right now a bunch of good talent are leaving because they are either on unpaid leave, or some companies have run out of money, or simply they're sitting at home having, I don't know, so much time, so much of a hard time getting used to this new world. And maybe they're thinking, you know what, I kind of don't like what I'm doing right now. And those people right now are on the market, and they have less people, less companies coming at them, because a bunch of companies have stopped hiring. I have 1, 2, 3 clients have talked to me about the fact that they're still hiring right now, and they are amazed by the amount of CVs they are getting right now. So push on, hire on. And I've been asked, what, hire now? Are we supposed to onboard people in a situation where we can't even see them? They cannot come to an office? So yeah, you can and you should. And I'm guessing most of you right now have someone already scheduled to start sometime during this very interesting time. And in that situation, you need to make sure that you have a great onboarding. Create one Slack channel for the COVID onboarders, and make sure that they all can talk to each other and help each other out during this time, because they're gonna need some sort of system and a support group so that they can push forward. But yeah, you can and definitely should keep on hiring if you can, and onboard people right now and move on. Now, I'm hearing something very interesting from a bunch of people, and that's, I'm asking everyone I know, how's it going? What are you learning right now about the situation? And some people are saying, this is amazing. My people have never been so productive. I think we might have more work from home time after this becomes an optional thing. And people say this and they're happy. Yeah, we're productive, all good, right? But what I'm hearing is, oh my God, it took a pandemic for you to let your people work alone and not trouble them all the time, because that's usually what it means. So right now, if you're seeing that you're actually benefiting from the situation when it comes to the productivity of the people, you need to know that you probably have way too much micromanagement going on in your company. People are always asking things, or you have a terrible etiquette when it comes to interruptions, questions, and respecting each other's time. As someone coding since I was 9, I know that having the ability to concentrate on something is so precious. And if people are able to work even better right now when they are at home and they have the TV on with some news, and they have 2 kids running along, and I don't know, the dog and whatever, then that means your office is terrible. So if you're seeing people being more productive, you need to right now assess whatever you're doing wrong during non-pandemic times and start changing things up. And another way that you need to support your managers is to ensure that, to support your staff, is to make sure that you specifically support managers. Managers by far are having the hardest time right now because a bunch of them have lost their crutches. They were used to using all sorts of crutches like micromanagement, being able to see when people are in the office, being able to see huddles. The huddle when there's an issue or there's a bug, and you see 5 engineers all crunching in front of one computer, and you can tell that something's up. All of a sudden you can't, because that's happening in some private Slack channel. And many managers right now are finding themselves all lost. And imagine someone kicking the crutches off of you, and you either realize, oh my God, I can walk, and that's great, That's similar to, oh my God, I have so much time right now. That means that whatever you think is necessary and that you've been doing a lot of, you can stop. The team is okay. They're a bunch of grown-ups, and you don't need to be such a chopper parent. But it does mean that some of the managers are going to faceplant the second they have lost the crutches. They don't know how to tell how good their people are doing. They don't know how to feel if there's any issue, if they need to be involved more. They don't know how to not be the hub so that they sit and everyone in the team comes to them with questions, and so they do not know what's going on. And you need right now to coach those people into being better managers. We'll dive a bit into how you can tell that your team are doing effectively, because I've been asked that so much right now because of the remote working situation. People are saying, all of my managers right now don't know whether performance is good. They don't know whether people are being lost or if things are on track. We might know when a sprint or a version is done, but that can take 2, 3, 4 weeks. And we don't want to lose all that time simply because we're not seeing people as we are used to. So first of all, let me start with a story about myself. Again, I used to do freelancing for a bunch of companies. And the most common feedback I would get from clients is, you know, Aviv, what you get done in 2 days a week, most of our engineers don't get done in 5. And you know what? That's not because I'm such an awesome coder. Well, I'm okay, but that's not because I'm such a good coder. That's because I came in with a mindset of what I need to solve is specifically the problem that I know the stakeholders had and that has made them decide to come and hire me. I had urgency and I wanted to see the impact. I knew I wanted to see the testimonial the second I leave saying, oh my God, Aviv did it. He did it amazingly and he did it fast. You know who doesn't have that drive? Employees. And so you need to make sure that you, in all your organization, you measure people simply by their outcomes, by the results, by the outputs, not by the inputs. Every micromanager gets used to testing how people are doing. How? By seeing how much time they had their butt in the seat every day. Did they arrive early enough? Did they take too many breaks? Whatever. No one cares. No one. And no one should care, because the butt in seat way of measuring performance is the worst. You get used to the fact that you have to sit in the office for so long so that you know that I have these 8, 9, 10 hours a day that I have to sit there. I might as well, I don't know, browse Facebook because there's no rush. Where do I need to go? So first of all, in order to assess how performance works in a remote situation, you have to focus on outcomes, and you really should think about moving that and taking that along with you. That's a big piece of leverage. Now, in order to be able to see where basically if you treat your R&D organization or a team as some sort of a black box and you're used to giving it the inputs, I don't know, the sprint planning, and we have this and this and that we need to get done, and all the leading indicators that you usually have are now gone because you don't see people and you cannot see if someone is sitting in front of the same documentation page for the whole day and stuff like that. This becomes truly a black box because you only see what's coming out of it. You see the completed pull requests or the features being moved to done. But you need to punch holes into this, especially in the situation. And the way to do that is to do things such as, for example, say, in Slack, we do not send private messages on business matters. You can have a private message with your friend, with your colleague, because he's also a friend and you want to talk about, I don't know, whatever you watched on Netflix. But there's no business related talk going on in private channels. If that's too spamming for people, then you need to create more channels. But if someone is asking a question about service X and you need to, and you want people to be aware, because especially right now, we might not all be working on the computer at the same time. So you might be asking that question to Alice, but Alice right now is AFK, and you have to wait for 20 minutes before you say, all right, I'll try talking to Bob. If you do everything on Slack in public channels, you're going to see it. And so you'll see if someone is asking a lot of questions, being stuck, if there's a issue and that everyone are talking about and you as the manager are not aware of because you're sitting in the back and working on other stuff. So out in the open, communication is so important. Feedback loops also are something that you need to be monitoring right now. You have probably a bunch of feedback loops that you are not used to looking at, or at least not as attentively as you should. How many deploys are people doing every day? How are the tests doing? Do we have a bunch of failing builds lately? How code reviews are working on. Are people waiting too long for our review? Are we having way too many fixes in our review? Postmortems. What kinds of insights are people getting? I hope that you actually have postmortems. And right now is an amazing period to introduce them, because of the situation, a lot of people have to handle outages without the person that usually does it being available, because again, I don't know, they have a child that they need to attend to. So look into postmortems, have many more one-on-ones, and so you gather more information. And lastly, make sure that there are no lone rangers. You want people to not go, into radio silence, getting their tasks and saying, all right, I'll talk to you all in 5 days when I complete this. You want to have tasks be as small as possible. You want to make sure that people send stuff off for review in shorter intervals, because no one likes going over a pull request and reviewing 5 days worth of code. And you want to make sure that they have someone to communicate with. So have mentoring, have buddies, the buddy system. Everyone should have someone that they know they can talk to. And I think that if you make sure that people are communicating in the open and you attend to the feedback loops to see where things are starting to fail, and you get the support system for everyone so that no one is, slamming their head against the wall alone for a full day, they have someone to talk to, you are more likely to realize when there are issues sooner. And what every step here does is punching another hole into the engineering black box so you can start seeing into it and realizing whether something is starting to lag. And that's something, I've had this conversation with I don't know how many managers lately, and I think that's something that if you as the leader provide them with these insights, you can help them tremendously. If you see a manager a bit lost because they have lost their crutches, this is something that can really make a difference for them. Now, I've mentioned that you need to position yourself higher up, and that means that, especially when we're talking about your organization, you want to make sure that you provide the right kind of leadership right now. Leadership means that you are aware of focus changes. For example, should the roadmap change or not? Many people are saying that, well, this isn't really affecting my business, but we're going to change things just because it seems like the right thing to do. We should, I don't know, have a bunch of content marketing and features related to people working from home. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. The part of leadership here is to make sure that you realize whether something is valuable enough to actually warrant changing your course. So for example, I have one client that right now has an amazing opportunity because of the situation. They can actually provide so much more value to their clients because what's going on. And so they have realized they need to stop whatever they planned on doing and finish something else right now. And you know what? That makes total sense. And that's a place where the VP of engineering came in and could tell, we can get this, this, and that done right now. What do you say? And that was an amazing insight for the product. So that's where you can bring in leadership at a higher position and actually affect the whole, not just your organization, you can affect the whole business. And that's amazing. So think, can you spot new needs in other parts of the organization that you can now enable? Um, for example, say that you see that because of the situation, you have many more people using your mobile app because they are not next to their computer. And so maybe what you need to be doing is providing people, your mobile support staff, with tools so that they can more easily see if people are having issues and debug them. Or maybe you can tell that for example, the onboarding for your new clients is now a lot harder because people need to communicate. They themselves, your clients, have to communicate remotely with other colleagues at their companies. Maybe you need to introduce quickly a wizard to your onboarding to make sure that they do not forget what step of the process they were on and don't lose out on things. These are real examples I'm seeing right now. So make sure that you know where you can use the focus and decide whether you need to change whatever you're doing or jumping on an opportunity, and you have a lot of power here. Now, I think that you can, again, as a leader, focus on what processes and what value you can provide your people right now or change things up. You need to provide your people with an ability to look into what's going on right now and understand where they are going. Right now, every employee is looking for some guidance. And if you can tell them, we have decided to do this, this, and that, if you can show them that there's a plan, that there's some bigger objective, people will be able to close down some of the cognitive loops they have going on in their heads. So provide people with some vision, and next, make sure to align that vision with whatever you're doing. For example, if you've decided to go into some sort of a war mode and implement something very specific for this pandemic during this crisis, it makes sense maybe to let go of some of your regular processes, such as the very, very big sprint planning or having everything documented. Or on the other hand, maybe right now is the time to change your process so that some of the things that usually were going on face to face would be written down so that people can see what has been decided, even if they are not able to attend the meeting. Make sure to not just stick to your old ways because that's what you're used to doing, and make sure to change whatever you need in order to have everyone be the most effective they can be. And one trick I have is to ask your people, how are we doing? Amazing, right? Well, no one is asking. And engineers, you probably know it because you're paying them so much money. Engineers are pretty smart. They usually can tell, and they usually can have ideas, but especially when they are not bumping into you when you're going across each other in the hallway. Right now, you're not going to hear a bunch of ideas or issues or matters that are going on in the team or between teams that you are not aware of. So ask the team how. I recommend having some weekly, I'm guessing you already have some sort of a weekly meeting with everyone. Usually it's some sort of a happy hour. Maybe have before that some sort of a weekly, how are we doing? And ask people to come with suggestions and ideas to that meeting. And that can be as simple as, you know what, I've found out that if I work with headphones, I'm more effective even if I'm at home and there's no real noise around me, if you're one of those lucky enough to be alone at the home right now. But you need to make sure that you ask people, and magic happens. They simply come to you with ideas. I love that. And again, when we're talking about leverage, consider what is happening right now that you're seeing that you can make use of later. Is your team suddenly very, very effective and some wartime kind of operation, maybe you should have these hackathons every quarter because people seem to like them at your company and they seem to be productive. Maybe working from home seems to be working fine for some of your people and you should change your work from home policy to allow it. Maybe right now you understood that you can hire people from across the country because they don't have to be in the same city as your site. Maybe you can allow for some remote workers and all of a sudden your ability to hire people has become that much greater. You don't have to hire only those who are okay with commuting to your office. A bunch of lessons can be taught here. And if you're saying, again, people becoming more productive right now, understand whether you need to have a different etiquette in your company, have, I don't know, bigger offices, have people wear headphones, and have some sort of an agreement. If I'm wired, no one's going to interrupt me unless it's very important. All sorts of things. Everything you can do with these right now will allow you to leverage what's happening and allow you to get out of this ahead. Because what you're doing right now will, if you're able to right now do things in an okay manner, once we're back to non-pandemic mode, you're going to be the leader, because this is like running with ankle weights. This is like training. Right now, things are harder because we are remote and most of us are not used to it. We have kids at home. We constantly check news to see what's going on in the world. And I don't know, we're checking up with family and seeing that everyone are okay. If you can do things good right now, whatever you become good at right now, you will be a leader at once this is through. And this will be through, right? Make no mistakes. This will be done eventually. And I'm hoping sooner rather than later. So focus on what you can do right now and work on it as a muscle so that it becomes stronger and stronger and you can have a bunch of impact later on. And lastly, let's talk a bit about technological leverage. Focus on whether you should change. I'm saying focus a lot because you need to focus on your personal stuff, you need to focus on the organizational stuff, you need to focus on the technological stuff. Of course, you cannot focus on everything at the same time. That's not how focus works. Sorry. Focus on how technologically you can impact things right now. If you right now have a bunch of architects or senior engineers or whatever working on some big tech debt thing that all of a sudden is just not as important as it used to be because of things have changed, maybe you need to consider having those people stop whatever they're doing and join other teams for the time being. And vice versa, you might consider, hey, maybe we should go into working on some tech debt because servers have less load right now because of the situation. People are using the system less. So right now is a great time to try some new systems or some new tool or some new process that we've been thinking of, or simply, switching up servers and renewing your infrastructure. Maybe now is the time to do that. Now is the time not to deal with tech debt. It's a time to build up on tech capital. Tech capital is when you do a bit of work that you know will be worthwhile ahead. I'm not talking about over-engineering. I'm not talking about premature organization. I'm talking about building things with a bit more attention because you know it's going to be worthwhile very soon. Tech capital is a good investment. Maybe you have opportunities right now to make some very nice tech capital investments. That's what I'm talking about. And I have a client that right now understood that they can change up a bunch of their servers that they usually are very afraid to touch because every second of downtime for them means a lot of money. And because right now they have less load and they see that they can do it in a safer manner, they are right now changing up a bunch of things in order to rush and put a bunch of work into this. So consider whether you need to stop some tech debt or a task that you're doing, or whether you need to do some new stuff, all right? Think, is there any innovation here that we can introduce? Is there any novelty that right now can help the business? Let's do that. Um, I don't know, people are not at the office. Can you create some sort of a dashboard that people would see, because you no longer have the big LED screen that people come in and see the big TV with all the numbers. Maybe you need to create a quickly an email report that people get every morning to see how things are doing, because they no longer can see the numbers up on a screen. Um, think what you can do in order to push things technologically. Also, this might be a great time to invest in your people's growth, because if you have a bit more time, or if you have made some of your timelines, you added some slack to your timelines because you know people are not as effective when it comes to working. Again, I'm giving the example of working with toddlers because I'm working at home with 3 kids, 6, 4, and 2 years old. And man, that's a very interesting period. We've been at home for 3.5 weeks right now. My wine stock is just getting empty so fast. I just had 17 more bottles shipped here today because I know I'm gonna need them. So if people are working right now with kids and you say, you know what, we're going to say whatever we committed to for the next 2 months, we're gonna take it and say, we're gonna have to do it in the next 3 months. Instead, we're gonna add a month of buffer. Maybe some of the people can actually have the time right now to grow, to learn new things, to work doing pairing, pair programming remotely right now with other people, to learn new things, to maybe do some brain swaps with some companies, with some other teams in your company, sorry, so that they can try out new technologies, new aspects of the business. Maybe now is the time. So consider that's a big boost to morale if you have people who are going for a rough time and you can afford it. And I think that's very interesting. And also consider whether you right now see some of your teams doing remarkably better than other teams. Why? Because first of all, it's interesting to know, but there's this concept of finding bright spots. If you can see in your company where things are working much better than other places, you can leverage that. If you see a team working better, again, I have in my toolbox as a coach and consultant, I don't have too many things. I just know how to apply them. One of those concepts is asking smart people for their input. Amazing. So we had asking people how they're doing in order to see if they have issues in the way you are working right now. There's also, when you see a team doing good, asking them, well, how do you do it? And having them come and talk to the other people. So if you have a team doing well, maybe that team lead can have a dedicated Zoom meeting with the rest of your team leads talking about how his or her team are doing right now and what have they learned. Maybe you can use that bright spot to shine a bigger light on other parts of your team. All right. Sorry. All right. So think about that. And lastly, to summarize all of this, the bigger picture is I've given you a bunch of tactics, but the bigger picture is you can use this time to make a bunch of small improvements, be it by claiming back a bit of your time personally, changing how you handle tech debt in your company, or helping your managers become less of a micromanager and growing as managers. And the amazing thing is, a lot of the things you do right now are not throwaway, and that's where you have leverage. Because everything you do right now, I'm going to say it again and again, everything you do good right now, you're going to be doing better later. So invest in yourself. Take the time right now to think and take the time to lead. If you can take time, hopefully you can take time tomorrow. Have an hour in your calendar with nothing. Have your phone put away, close down your laptop, sit with a blank piece of paper and a pen, a nice pen if you can have one, and write down whatever comes to mind. Think what you can do. That's again, as simple as can be, but that's where leverage comes in. You're paid a lot of money and you have a bunch of responsibility. And that responsibility doesn't just mean that you are here to answer whatever people are asking you and knocking on your door. You are here to provide vision, strategy, insight, guidance. And that does not come, at least not as much as you can provide your team. It does not come from running along with your calendar. That comes from thinking, digesting, and strategizing. And that's something that I'm sure you can do. And I believe that everyone can find something that will have a great impact on their team and on their business from this time. There's a silver lining in everything. So that's that. I'll before I'll go to my offer. Let me see if I have any questions to end this with. I'm seeing a question. Are there any crutches engineers might have, and how can they now more easily be exposed? That's interesting. Engineers, as I've said, I've given a bunch of examples about this earlier. Engineers usually have very easy to spot issues if you're in the same room with them and you can see what they're doing. It's easy to see if someone is in front of the documentation for hours. It's easy to see someone just getting pissed because something's not working and they want to slam the keyboard. Or if you're seeing someone taking a lot of breaks because they're doing something hard. But you can, with the examples I gave for punching holes, you can hear and see what people are doing. So I recommend having a bunch of code reviews. If you don't already have code reviews, introduce them. If you already have them, make sure that people do not sit on code for days at a time. They should be opening multiple pull requests a day, or say opening one up every day, 2 at the max. That means that they are not getting lost too far, and that you can tell when something has gone missing and they are getting feedback on whatever they're doing at a more timely manner, right? That's one thing. And again, add a buddy or a coach. And when it comes to one-on-ones, I'm saying I have another question here. Should I have more one-on-ones or less, the weekly one-on-ones? I think these two actually align. During this time, I recommend that you individually, for each person you're managing, consider having more frequent one-on-ones. If you see someone having a harder time or someone simply not communicating as much, maybe consider adding another shorter one-on-one another time every week. Or if you have one-on-ones every 2 weeks, have one every week for the time being, so that you can be closer to them, allow them to have this platform to talk and discuss whatever is going on. So these two actually align. Thank you both for these questions. Let me see if I have any more. Hiring means onboarding now. I've talked about that, right? I said, yeah, you can onboard people right now and you should. I think that's good. And you can get used to it. It's not that bad. I think companies, you need to remember that there are remote companies that do this all the time. GitHub allows you to start working there, at least used to allow you to start working there from everywhere. Basecamp does the same. You start working at a company, they FedEx you a laptop, and you just open it up, you have a guide, you have your mentors, and you start working. You can do that as well, I'm sure. It's a bit harder when it's the first few times it's happening, but you can do it. And it's worth it for the price of talent nowadays. If you can get someone right now, it's probably going to be worth investing a bit in their onboarding so that you get them right now. And how to stay productive in these days. Well, I gave the example of making sure you use your time and doing a calendar reset, refresh to make sure that whatever you're doing in your time right now is worthwhile. But you can do even more. For example, by the way, I'm guessing your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and whatever feeds you've got are just full to the brim with a bunch of people saying how you should be working remotely. So there's a bunch of them about that. But personally, as someone who works remotely quite a bit already, I can tell you that what I do is I treat this as work. I'm usually dressed like that even if I'm not going to go outside of my home the whole day. I usually like to dress as if I'm going to an office. I put on cologne and I have a very fixed agenda. It might change a bit, but I do have a calendar. I try to wake up at the same time. I try to get to my desk and work at the same time and have some sort of a routine that mimics what I'm used to when I'm going to the office, because that's something that allows me to be more productive. And if there's something that's really helpful for me is good headphones and a bunch of music to simply help me focus. I'm sorry, that's the main things I have. Put put down Zoom whenever you need to. You don't have to attend every meeting. Make people write more. You know, if you see a meeting and you say, this could have been an email, this is a good time to turn those into emails. So use written communication more right now. Any more questions? No, right? Great. So if you have any more questions, feel free to send me an email. You're going to get an email from me and you can reply. My offer for all of you is the same offer I've made to all my advisor clients, but they already see me regularly so they can use it. If you want to think how you specifically can leverage this situation, you can email me, reply to the email you get with the recording, and schedule a free session with me. And we'll talk just like this, but I'll be able to hear you. And we'll talk about what you should be doing right now in your organization. I love those conversations and I'd love to help you out. So that's everything. Thank you all for joining me. I'm wishing you safety and health. And I'm hoping to talk to you again soon. Good night.